The title of your lecture in specific was Goodness, Altruism, and the Literary Imagination. And when you announced this to me, it first suggested, at least to me, that title would entail just the opposite argument from the one that indeed you in fact made. Rather than indicating the many ways and the works in which the literary imagination has given voice to altruism, to selfless acts undertaken for others, you instead described goodness in literature as personified very often as, and this was your word, mute. You argued that while what you called the quote-unquote theatricality of evil makes for compelling viewing, quote, goodness in contemporary literature, and the quote continues, seems to be equated with weakness. Evil, you said, has a blockbuster audience. Goodness lurks backstage, close quote. And then leaving aside even these visual metaphors, you offered the following startling, indeed literally accurate, that's what really gave me pause, literally accurate observations about some of the most celebrated embodiments of goodness in modern English language fiction. And now I'm just going to, with your permission, I'm going to quote you from that lecture. Quote, evil has vivid speech, goodness bites its tongue. It is Billy Budd who can only stutter. It is Cutsy's Michael K. with a hair lip that so limits his speech that communication with him is virtually impossible. It is Melville's Bartleby, confining language to repetition. It is Faulkner's Benjy, an idiot. And then you went on to say, contemporary literature is not interested in goodness on a large or even limited scale. When it appears, it is with a note of apology in its hand and has trouble speaking its name.
True.
Well, we need more than that, I'm guessing. So I wanted to ask if you wanted, I was extremely struck by these observations, talk to you about them and talk to you about them. So, and I have a little bit more to say about that, but I want to hear if you want to comment on these observations yourself right now.
I've said before, I hadn't explored it as carefully as I did for the Ingersoll, but I was always a little bored by demonstrations of evil. They relied on the same things. I used to say it always has this top hat and a cape and a tuxedo and a cane, and it has all this stuff, glamour and costume, maybe even a little theme music. But the goodness never has anything, because it doesn't want anything. Can't use anything. It's just there. And in the literature, the early literature, 18th, I guess, and certainly 19th century, the Dickens kind of moved, horrible, horrible life, but there was this yearning, this stretch toward a resolution. And the good people survived and the bad people either didn't or changed, and that was true of many of them. Jane Austen, of course, that kind of thing was about getting married, and being married was good if you got the right person. And that was true of most of that literature. I think what happened is World War I, when goodness, and certainly after World War II, when being a good person was trivial, almost silly. A character could only be understood to be good if he was stupid, he was never clever or sophisticated or even well-educated. They were always vaguely stupid. Hemingway has a lot of those little good, stupid people, and except for himself, of course. He's always good. And more and more and more. So and I haven't done the really important work, which is to look at the very recent literature, to see if there is anything different about that. My sense is that there is not a difference. The few books that, the good few books that I get and read, and sometimes have extraordinary, brilliant, beautiful language, but the thrust and the effort in the language is toward trying to explain something that is corrupt or lacking. If not reaching the heights of evil, it lurks around evil. And that's what's supposed to interest the reader. It's not interesting to me. It's too easy, if you get my drift. Goodness is really and truly hard. You can't seduce it. So writing and trying to find language for it has been probably all I have ever done.